recognizes the ranking member for opening statement. I yield to the ranking member for an opening statement.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Distinguished gentlelady from California, Mary Bono. Gentlelady is recognized.
Chair now recognizes
the lady from California is recognized.
I'm pleased to introduce Congresswoman Mary Bono, former U.S. Representative for California's Inland Empire and Desert Region from 1998 to 2013.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Greetings and welcome to Sagely Speaking. I'm your host, Mary Bono. We have a fabulous guest today, as always. Today we have Rick Rockhill, who is the Chief Operating Officer and Partner at Lucy Pet Foods. Lucy Pet Foods is a sponsor of this show, but beyond that, Rick is a friend and he is a MAPTA ambassador, so he works on Mothers Against Prescription Drug Abuse, and perhaps we'll talk about that later in the show, but I really wanted to jump right into why I thought Rick would be a fascinating guest, and that is to talk about our pets and the importance that they play in our own lives. I think they help with mental health. They certainly help with physical health. So I wanted to really get into this with Rick and pick his brain about a bunch of stuff pet related. But Rick, before we get there, as you know, right now this country is very, very divided. Each side is pointing fingers at the other side. People are tweeting tweets about the other side. They're posting on Instagram, this or that, taking one side or the other. So I wanted you to settle it right now, once and for all. Cats or dogs?
Oh, that's a very controversial topic. You think politics is divisive. Wow. You pit dog and cat people against one another. Well, I am a dog guy. I've had cats and I love cats too, but I'm a dog guy. That's my vote.
Okay. I'm both. I've had dogs and cats. Right now I have one dog. I have a chocolate Labrador named Remy. Her full name is Remington McCallan. I don't know. She's named after a shotgun and some scotch. That's my husband's. Obviously, it's his doing. But in any event, she's really the greatest dog in the history of dogs. And I love her so much. But my kids are cat people. And they've just completely gone full cat. So they get the same enjoyment and love out of their cats that I get out of my dog, but they're like seriously full cat videos, cat posts. But in any event, let's talk about this. Clearly, you and I love our dogs. They're a huge part of our lives. They bring us happiness. And so this is your livelihood, pet food. Talk to me about your experiences as a dog owner and why you got into the pet food business.
Sure. Well, first of all, I love my dog, and I've had dogs my whole life, and I grew up with dogs, and I knew the benefit they had, just the companionship side, and I found myself in my career gravitating toward the pet industry, and I've now been in the pet industry for over 30 years. And it kind of found me, So as I got into it, I had an active role in the pet nutrition side. And my background really is pet food nutrition marketing and really understanding what's right for dogs and cats nutritionally. But along the way, when you're working with the right people and motives are just, really everything comes back to what's right for the animal. I got involved with some people who were very interested in studying the benefits of animals to humans. And it was fascinating to hear that. And so really it started out with animal advocacy, which has been around a long time, of course. The idea of doing the right thing for animals, anti-hoarding, anti-cruelty, adoption, no-kill shelters, that kind of thing. And it feels good when you help animals. And it's great when animals find a home and so forth. But along the way, I was involved with this organization that was formed, and I was one of the early members, called HABRI, the Human Animal Bond Research Initiative. And it's a nonprofit. The purpose of the group was it was a long haul vision. It was to assemble research, data, information, and become a hub for helping people and the industry understanding this relationship between animals and humans. And it turns out, even from the very early stages, that we knew there was a lot of really good stuff out there. And I say stuff, meaning at the time it wasn't documented. So what HABRI really set out to do was to fund initiatives that would conduct studies, gather research, and have it all open book, available for anybody, So all the different pet industry companies funded this nonprofit to get research going. And that really helped a lot because the goal was to change and influence public policy, to influence businesses, inform and educate consumers, pet parents, that kind of thing. So it was really a great place for me to start, and it was my commercial career, but it was also this side of me that was thinking, okay, how can I give back in some way? And we were doing that with the research.
You give back a lot too. I mean, your nonprofit, but Lucy, the work that you all do, a percentage of your profit, I believe, goes all to your nonprofit that benefits animals.
Yep, the Lucy Pet Foundation is a 501c3 animal charity, and we actually do the work. So we're actually out with a mobile spay and neuter clinic doing free spay and neuters, free wellness clinics, going into low-income areas where some people don't have access to veterinarians and so forth. They don't know about why you should spay and neuter your pet. And there's a whole list of things. That's another whole episode here you could talk about. But I think the point is that we're a mission-based organization. And yeah, sure, we make pet food and we do all that stuff, and that's important. But the foundation does the work, and we like working with organizations that care about animals and are focused about animals. But the other side of this is the relationship to the human, right? So you want to keep your pet healthy, all that good stuff. And it's great to have a pet in your home as it's just a companion. But what all the research is showing now, and it's like just insurmountable evidence really, that there is an actual host of benefit to people from having a pet. And it goes from anywhere from stress, reducing stress, anxiety, to lowering blood pressure. I mean, you name it. Even in, the release of positive endorphins in the body, and it's documented research, so peer-reviewed scientific data that shows that having a pet can be helpful in your life.
Oh, I know for a fact. I know that my dog is very helpful in my life, and she provides all of those things you just mentioned. Stress relief. Look, all you have to do is kind of get out of your head every once in a while. You're having a bad day, you're stressed out, or you're overworked, and you get out for that 15-minute walk with your dog, and it sort of resets everything. It just totally gives you a new focus and kind of helps you externalize a little bit and realize that the whole world isn't revolving around you.
That's right.
It actually revolves around our dogs.
Mary, it's exactly true. And I think whether you're raising your kids as a parent or you're just trying to get through life, life is hard. There's a lot of challenges that come up in life, and that's the reality. And if you're fortunate that at this stage of your life, things are not so difficult, pretty sure at some point down the road, something challenging will come along. So part of the journey of life that we're on is sort of building these tools and gathering these learnings to help us manage those life challenges. And animals actually can help balance life. And so, unfortunately, pets don't live long enough, but you can have multiple pets, and what you find is that they help you in ways that you don't initially realize. The idea of playing with your pet seems like you're just entertaining your dog, but there's research to show, or your cat too, by the way, but there's research that shows now that this game theory about you actually playing fetch, playing a ball, playing tug of war actually helps us as humans develop skills in our brain, coping mechanisms when we have stress down the road. So you inadvertently realize, or don't even realize that you're subconsciously helping yourself by playing with your dog or your cat. And so the things that are great about pets, right, is that you have to do certain things. There's rituals involved, taking your pet out certain times a day and a certain number of times a day, and going for walks, getting exercise. Those things have benefits to us as people. And I have this personal mantra in my life that I tried. There's three things I try to do every day. It comes down to the physical, the mental, and spiritual needs I have. So the physical needs, I mean, I'm not as great as I should be getting as much exercise, say, at the gym, but I have to walk my dog 5 times a day. So that gets me off my butt, outside, getting some physical exercise. So at a minimum, I'm doing that every day. The mental needs, the idea of just taking care of myself, slowing down. When you look into your pet's eyes and you see the love they have for you, it does bring calm. It does lower your stress and your anxiety. And that's very beneficial because you're healthier if you have any kind of high blood pressure. And then finally, on that spiritual needs, just kind of like thinking about how you get in tune with nature, how you can, really focus on things that matter. So every day I try to do those three things in my life, and my dog is right there with me. And so people don't realize how beneficial having a pet can have to those routines of life.
Now, Rick, that can be beyond a dog or a cat. I think you've told me before people can have fish and have a similar feeling in taking care of their fish. Is that true?
That's right. So there's a great bunch of research and studies that have been done around fish tanks. So people who have heart surgery, people who have high blood pressure, and this is very cutting edge when medicine or doctors will prescribe a pet. Okay, so the idea is I can give you drugs, I can give you medication to do a certain systemic chemical reaction in your body, but I can also recommend a pet, and like in the case of a fish tank, there are documented studies of people who've had reduced levels of blood pressure by enjoying their fish tank. I mean, it seems crazy, right? But there are other pets too, depending on what your interest level is and what you're able to handle at home, right? And there's lots of things around that. But it is true that there's so many interesting cases, Mary, of kids with autism, for example. Parents have difficulty reaching them inside, all kinds of things like that. Maybe some kids with some developmental challenges, and having a pet can help them express their feelings, help them open up. It helps calm them down when they're anxious. So those are some fascinating things that more and more doctors now are actually recommending and prescribing. And I think even people with addiction recovery, they can find, and it's always good if you're in any kind of addiction therapy, talk to your therapist, talk to somebody to say, is this right for me or for someone you know? But it is amazing that medicine is actually looking to the role of pets to aid and assist in that mental state and the stress.
Should everybody have a pet?
I would say so. No, I think what's really interesting is, and there's a responsibility to being a pet parent for sure, right? There's a lot of things everyone needs to understand. It costs money. You have to buy the best food you can afford. You should go to the vet for checkups, right? All those things, having toys and things that help keep the pet stimulated and so forth. And you need time. Your time is precious, but what could be better and more wholesome than spending time with the family member? So like your pet is part of the family. So if you know that you can do all those things and you have the right home setting for the pet you choose, and by the way, the breed you decide on, whether you go to a shelter and adopt or you find a breed, the right breed or mix of breeds is very important to understand. A high energy breed means you're going to need to spend a lot more time. Do you have a yard? Can they run? Can you walk? If you don't, then you get a small dog, and that can be just as beneficial and rewarding.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier something that I had read, and that God made one mistake. I read somewhere. It was that God didn't give our pets 100 years to live, and that their terms are way too short, for sure. But let's talk a little bit about Lucy. Who is Lucy?
So Lucy is a dog. My business partner, he basically rescued this Chihuahua 14 years ago now. And she had been hit by a car and she had tire tracks on her. And he took her in, rescued her, and found out she was pregnant. So here's another dog out there with a litter. And he kept the litter, and a few neighbors got some of the dogs. But basically, he took her in. And at that time, we had just sold our previous company, and Joey thought, I really want to give back to animals. Animals have given us a great life. And so he founded the Lucy Pet Foundation, named after his dog Lucy. And really what was behind that is the sobering fact is there's an overpopulation of animals that are in shelters. And what I mean by that is there are every city, every town, there's always some regional shelter that serves the community. And the shelter is where stray dogs and cats wind up, to be honest, and some other animals too, rabbits and such. But what happens is some animals are picked up from the street that are just running loose, right? Animal control gets them. Some people abandon their pets, or they can't afford them, or they're moving. And so the shelter gets full. And then they don't know what to do. They try to adopt them out. So part of the problem is this overpopulation. When dogs and cats are not fixed, either spayed or neutered, a dog is neutered, a female is spayed, then they populate, have more puppies and kittens, and you'd be shocked to know how quickly an unneutered or unspayed pet or an animal can reproduce, like in the thousands. And so a community can be overrun with, you see cats on the street sometimes and they're unneutered or unspayed. It just perpetuates the issue. So our mission was, let's get ahead of the problem. Let's try to reduce the amount of overpopulation by allowing access to spay and neuter, educating people so they understand, get ahead of the problem. And so that's what we've done. So we started a foundation. It's totally free. We've done over 30,000 free spay and neuters in the greater Los Angeles area. Last week we were in Palm Springs, providing service to the community there with the Palm Springs Animal Shelter. But I think, being mission focused is very helpful because it keeps you, and by the way, the animal advocacy is huge. There's lots of need. There's adoption, there's rescue, there's all kinds of needs out there. And anybody listening, you could get involved just by contacting your local shelter and saying, can I donate if you want to walk pets? It's really hard if you go into a shelter, you want to take them all home. So you need to know your abilities and your disciplines. But just because maybe you can't adopt a pet right now, maybe you can donate your time or free food or something. But the point is, communities, what's really interesting, Mary, is that animals in the community have a direct impact, and it's a symbiotic relationship. How we treat our animals is a reflection of society and our values. So when we take care of our animals, either at home or in the shelter, that reflects on how good we're doing as human beings in the society.
I have a friend, Lori, in Texas, who is a lawyer, and she devotes a lot of her time towards advancing policies in the state of Texas, but also towards the no-kill shelters. It's a huge passion of hers, huge, huge, huge. I think it's what drives her more than actually being a litigator on legal issues, but she is a real devout person who does just that, who gives up her time to the cause. But I think you bring up a great point. I used to dream of having a bunch of horses in a ranch, and I'm too old. I gave up horses for golf. But I do support horse charities. And here where I live, there are a lot of wild Mustangs that need to be adopted out or need to be rounded up off of BLM land and hopefully in a humane way, but then to adopt those horses out. So I give money to that cause. I should give time. But you gave me something to think about. I should ask them if they need my money or my time or both.
That's right.
But you're right. It's a different feeling, I think, supporting animal charities. And it definitely feels very altruistic, I think. And I love that I do that. And I love this idea of, again, asking about walking dogs and going to the shelter. What can you do? I think that would be very helpful. I'd like to take this time to thank my incredible sponsors, Tamarack Resort in Idaho, America's only ski, golf, and lake resort nestled in the heart of Idaho. Whether you crave the rush of skiing down pristine slopes, shredding the trails on a mountain bike, perfecting your swing on their scenic golf course, or diving into thrilling lake activities, they have it all. Book your stay now at tamarackidaho.com. Lucy Pet Foods is the leader in gut health. Their formulas for life feature prebiotic balanced fiber that nourishes your dog and cat's total health. Every purchase helps support the Lucy Pet Foundation, a 501c3 charity helping animals. Get free shipping from lucypetfoods.com. Mothers Against Prescription Drug Abuse, driving solutions to prevent drug abuse and overdose deaths by focusing on prevention through education and awareness. Map to Action, dedicated to promoting smart policies that keep our communities safe and healthy. All of our sponsors can be found on our website at sagelyspeaking.com. And now, back to our interview. Let's talk about your role as COO. Let's get out of a little bit of the pet feeling here.
Sure.
Running this business. I mean, I guess with a bunch of cats and dogs, you don't have a lot of complaints. Unless they, by the way, my grandson was visiting last summer, and he didn't realize the dog biscuits were dog biscuits. He thought they were human treats, and he was eating them, and he thought they were very delicious. So if you need a taster, my grandson's available for you. But anyway, on to Lucy Pets. What's it like to be COO of this company?
Well, we're my business partner and I, Joey Herrick, have been in the business a long time. So we have our true north is what's right for the animal. Every decision we make, and that's not just marketing speak, like that's literally how we operate every day, is what's the right decision for the animal. And so it was so important to us when we started Lucy Pet Foods is that we went and bought our own plant, and it's in Irwindale, California. Pretty much all the ingredients we source are from the USA. I mean, those things are important to us, but I think you can, when you run a business, no matter what business it is, you make decisions every day, and what you believe in is important. And so because we're coming from a place of what's right for the animal, how can we help animals, we use that as our guideline. Who you source your ingredients from, how well you dig into the details about those companies, do you visit them, do you know them, do you look them in the eye? I mean, that all matters, because the food supply chain, whether for human or pet food, there's lots of bad actors out there, and you need to know, ask the questions before you go and buy from them. So that our sourcing is a really important part of what we do. But I'm proud of the fact that in our manufacturing plant here in California, more than 60% of our manufacturing employees have a pet, a dog, a cat at home, and they get free food, of course, working here. But what that means is that they're not just making widgets. The food that they're making is going to their own pet. So everyone has this sort of, buy-in that they need to take it seriously and be careful. And there's a number of people who have the ability to make decisions on the line every day to shut down the plant for that run if something doesn't look right or the shape's not right. And those things, it's not just the bosses that can do that. I say bosses, it's right down to the line guy, the line woman working the machinery. If they see something, they're empowered. And that's our motto, is this is always what's right for the animal. So I think those are, guidelines. And secondly, I would say that, we didn't want to get into this business unless we had something that could be helpful to animals. So I spent years studying nutrition, and we work closely with the leading expert on gut health. Fascinating little side corollary for you here, and this is kind of why we got back into the pet food business, is there's an amazing amount of research around the role of the gut and the immune system. And 80% of the immune system originates in our gut. People too, by the way. So our foods are based on this blend of fibers that actually helps improve gut health, and it actually creates more beneficial bacteria, overpowers the bad bacteria. You're always going to have bacteria in your body. The key is to have more good bacteria than bad bacteria. So our foods, Lucy Pet Foods, are designed to actually change the microbiome of your dog or your cat in just a couple of weeks. And so that was our mission, was let's do something that can actually help pets fight disease, to have a stronger immune system, be healthier, and that's why we got into the business.
Well, a lot of research too in humans, as you're mentioning, but research that says the gut biome is important to prevent Alzheimer's.
Absolutely.
And other, mental decline, and a lot of research in this. And who would have thunk it, 20 years ago, where we popped antibiotics for every little thing that we could. So we've come a long way. But how many employees do you have?
About 100, 110 employees total. We're technically a small company. We're owner operated. It's a family business. I'm in the plant all the time. I take a great interest. I know every employee's name, and I'm proud of that. But we are all animal people.
Well, I'm going to push back on that a little bit, because you do good things for your employees. I think you put them first too. I know that you had a convening with your employees to talk about mental health.
Yes.
And to talk about the fentanyl epidemic. Mm-hmm. How did that go?
Well, it was interesting, because being a MAPTA ambassador, I'm passionate about how we can do things. And I thought, well, wait a minute, in my own backyard, it's just the statistics tell me that there's probably somebody in my employee base, if not an employee, maybe in their families, or maybe a neighbor or some other relative that may be dealing with an issue related to prescription drug abuse or something along those lines. So I thought, well, why not start here? And so we have regular shift meetings, we have employee meetings, we have all kinds of things that happen on a regular basis. So first step was to introduce this information in a manner that was very casual, comfortable setting, because we do talk about things like mental health, and we have a great benefits package. And one of the things that I insisted we have is a really good employee assistance program. So under the umbrella of, if you're stressed, if you have this, if you have that, you can always call or contact our employee assistance hotline. It's anonymous, confidential. They provide all kinds of services. We introduced this topic about prescription drug abuse and the idea of fentanyl and the risks around that, and the fact that it's somebody that you probably don't think would be in that situation. So we started with some employee meetings by talking about it, remove the stigma, making it okay to discuss it, providing access to materials. So I was able to get some of the MAPTA printouts, handouts, some posters, put them up in break rooms, and I watch. employees on their break reading the things, and then eventually going to someone in human resource and saying, hey, is there that phone number I can have? And you think, okay, great. That was good. If we help one or two people at least know there's information out there, then we did our job. And as an employer, maybe I don't have any of our team members who are personally dealing with drugs, but if they have someone in their life and we can help them avoid that by getting access to the information, I felt like that was, as an employer, a responsibility to help.
I just applaud you for that. It's my experience in my own life. There are just days that I'm a walking wounded person. Something's troubling me, something's hurt me, I'm very worried about something. Whatever it might be, my mental health is a little bit front and center at that time. And what helps me is camaraderie and being able to talk to people about it. And, 15 years in Congress was very interesting to me because there were a lot of days like that. A lot. The press does a hit job on you or whatever. And it's just kind of one of those days. And the importance of people being able to talk about these issues helps get over that feeling of being the walking wounded, that I'm just suffering silently inside today. I'm having a bad day. And I think for people to know it's just normal and it just happens. And to have the support at work, I just applaud you, Rick, for your leadership and what you do there.
Well, thanks. It's interesting because I didn't realize at the time, but back in 1988, I was a conferee, a delegate basically, at the White House Conference for a Drug-Free America. And I was representing the state of Rhode Island, my home state. And I went to this conference and I participated actively. And I remember at the time, because we heard from a lot of people who spoke and talked about it, and I don't think that that conference would be, the outcome was a really thick book, really nicely done. I'm not sure anyone would look back at it and say it was a huge success in terms of the last 20, 30 years. However, it did open dialogue, right? It kicked things off, got a lot of national focus on it. President Reagan and former First Lady Nancy Reagan, they were very focused on that. But I think what I learned, what I walked away from that as a kind of a youngster, to be honest, was we heard from people who had service dogs, therapy dogs, and the role that had on some people who had been struggling with addiction. And I remember thinking, why didn't that make it into our final recommendations? There were a lot of really great recommendations that came out of that, and many of them were broadly in the category of community, that kind of thing, and different organizations. But I remember thinking, shucks, nothing in there specifically about pets, but it was way before the time, right? So this, here we are now. And I had an experience with my career working, lending my time with different guide dog organizations, Guide Dogs of the Desert in Palm Springs, and a number of others in the country, all nonprofits. And they train and provide service dogs. I was involved with fundraisers where we raised millions of dollars for service dogs and guide dog groups where they get the dog for free. But what I saw in that time were individuals who, not just people who didn't have their sight and had a guide dog. There were also people who had a therapy dog. But in particular, I was impressed by the people I met who were PTSD, former veterans who were, significantly impacted by their time served and the benefit that a dog had on their lives. There was this one veteran who I got to know pretty well. He was basically unable to leave his home, complex set of PTSD issues, and we were able to get him a free guide dog, or I should say a service dog, really. And this dog, with some training, enabled him to lead a healthy life. He was able to, for the first time, leave his house, Mary. Couldn't do that
That's
before.
Phenomenal.
He was able to go to a mall, a busy shopping crowd with his dog. The dog helped him get through that. And I was so impressed by that. And I realized at that time, this is earlier in my career, but I realized at the time that dogs in particular, and I will say cats can, a little differently, but cats also, but dogs in particular are very able, the ability for them to be trained. They're smart, certain breeds more than others, but they can be trained to do functions and tasks that people can't do for themselves. So it really inspired me to do more and learn more. And that's kind of what we've been doing all through my pet food career. This has been woven in with what we do. Sure, we're in business to make a profit, but it's nice to be able to say along the way, we're doing things to help people through dog food and cat food.
Well, definitely. And again, I can't help but feel what my dog does for me. She goes everywhere we go. We drive more often than fly any longer.
Yeah.
So that we can take our dog. We just did a trip to Lake Tahoe area before the 4th and drove all the way. It's a long trip. Yeah. Just so we could have our dog. And, she means that much to us. And when she's not in that back seat, you just kind of feel a little bit of a void.
Yes.
This week's code is Remy.
We've talked about dogs in the workplace. You allow your dogs to come to work with you,
We do.
Your employees. And we've talked about here in Europe, dogs can pretty much go anywhere, restaurants. And here it's not as friendly for us to take our dogs into eating establishments, I think, thanks to regulations. Wouldn't the world be better if we could take our dogs everywhere?
Mary, aside from the fun part of it, right, where you say, I love my pet, I wish I could take them. I mean, I should just say, there are places that it's inappropriate to take your pet, for sure, right? You need to know that, is it not safe for them or not, whatever. And for example, last past weekend with 4th of July, we were actively educating people, do not take your pet to the 4th of July fireworks. Like, that's not a good place, too stressful for the pet. But when you think about the things that you can do with your pet, that, like going to a restaurant, you see service dogs, for sure. They legally have to be allowed. But it is amazing when, I'll give you your example about Europe. I was on a business trip a couple of years ago, and I was in Germany, and I was there for, 10 days, and I was missing my dog. And I remember distinctly one night, went out to a restaurant, and some German guy, local, brought his dog in, they sat down and had dinner, and I immediately felt better. Less stressed. It was just nice to see an animal. I went over and asked if I could pet his dog, and he said yes, and he smiled and I smiled, and there was a connection that two human beings who barely spoke the same language were able to have with one another through an animal. And by him allowing me to pet his dog, and I was cautious about that, but I did so with the right approach. It made me feel more relaxed, and I went home and thought, I can't wait to see my dog. I feel better having had contact with an animal. So I wish that our society was a little more open to that. It is changing. You see it more and more. We're huge advocates of pets in the workplace. It is not a new concept. There's lots of data around it. There's policies you can have if you're a business owner. I'll tell you, there was a survey that was done a couple of years ago, and employees indicated that they view being able to take their pet to work on the same level as an extra vacation day or a couple extra, like that was how valuable. Like, I'd rather have my dog with me every day, knowing they're not home alone all day, sad and lonely, and then me having my pet with me and calms me down, as valuable as vacation time.
Oh, that's interesting.
68% of employees said they'd rather have their pet than have some extra vacation time, pet at work. So, I think companies are afraid of it. Oh, well, what about this and what about that, right? There's ways around all of it. I've worked in not just pet companies. I've worked in environments where pets were allowed. And with structure, right, it can be done. And it's a great benefit to people and actually more productive at work.
Before we close, I just want to bring one thing up, though, especially kids. Kids need to be cautious before they approach a dog on the street that they don't know, thinking that it's okay to pet that dog. Remy, our dog, is extremely friendly. That's the way Labradors are. Mm-hmm. But I've also seen people walk up to chows, dogs that might be a little bit more aggressive. And I think it's very important that parents teach their kids to ask first and to tell them to be very cautious before they approach a dog on the street that they don't know. That can be really scary. But you have a standard poodle.
I'm a standard poodle guy, and I love them. And there's misconceptions about standards. They're great dogs. They're not just foo-foo, right? They're really great in a lot of ways, but they're intelligent. And I will just say that routines are really important to dogs in particular. And by the way, they're beneficial to people too. So dogs do best when they're on a schedule, when they have a routine, when they get fed, when they get walked, right? That structure, continuity is very beneficial to an animal. And you'd be surprised to know how beneficial it is to people too. So that benefit of having an animal, actually, by you caring for them and doing all those things, it really helps you in so many ways. I mean, there's documented research around this. And I think what I would encourage people to do is read up about it, find the breed that's right for you. If you go to a shelter to try to adopt an animal, a senior dog, whatever, get to know them. But anytime you approach any dog, even if it's some other family member's dog who you're visiting, you always go slow, close your fist, never just stick your fingers out. You close your fist, you go slowly, you ask if you can pet their pet, that kind of thing. And even once they say, sure, you can pet my dog, you still move slowly. And you don't want to spook the dog in any way. By the way, cats are the same way. They'll decide if they want you to come next to them or they take off. So I think the key is respect. If I were to leave a note with anybody's minds about animals, is treat your pets or any animal with the same respect you would want to be treated for yourself, because they are creatures of God and they deserve to be treated with respect.
If we ran a dog as president and a cat as vice president, maybe the country would unite. But to sum up our interview, really, it is that dogs, cats, pets do help with our mental health. They do help with our well-being. There's a lot that goes into it, but this is critically important. How can people learn more about your Lucy Pet Foods and about the foundation? Is there? I follow you on social media. I saw a long line of people waiting to get into your mobile neuter and spay clinic. That was encouraging to see. What a great turnout. But how can they reach you?
Well, first, I'd like to give a plug to the nonprofit organization. So if there's any businesses here who want, or anybody who wants more information about the human-animal bond and the huge amount of data that's all available to learn more about this for yourself, for your business, whatever, go to habri.org, habri.org. Now, that's a great resource for information. My company is Lucy Pet Foods, or lucypetfoods.com. Dog and cat food, you get free shipping. But anyway, our foundation is lucypetfoundation.org, and it is a California-based 501c3. We have all kinds of information there. And if we're not in your area to service your pet, to provide free spay and neuter services, contact your local shelter and find out who they know and what they can do. It's really beneficial for your pet to have them spayed, because, by the way, spayed and neutered animals live longer. You avoid things like cancer and so forth. So there's health benefits, not just the overpopulation issue. And go to your vet. Those are really important things I want to plug today.
Those are all very good, for sure. By the way, I'm glad you've talked about your company. It's okay to talk about your company and what you do, and I think it's sounds like a great sounding place to work. My friend Kathy asked me if Remy eats Lucy Pet Foods. We're transitioning her slowly to it. But she loves the treats. She's crazy about the treats. And I think you've created a new routine for Remy, and that is she expects her treats certain times of day.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'll tell you that we make our dog and cat kibble here. We make some treats, dog food rolls here in the plant too. And the meats we use are the same, I won't say the name, but they're human brand meat, beef and chicken that goes into them. And we buy things that are from the same suppliers as human food suppliers. I mean, I don't want my pets eating anything that I don't know what's in it, and good stuff. And so anytime, I will say one more thing about this is that we're unique in the sense that if somebody contacts us, sometimes like the owner will call them back. That is not uncommon. I guarantee you there's none of the big giant pet food companies out there where you'll get the owner to call you back, or the CEO or me, because we care and we always want to know what our consumers have to say. So if you ever want to know whether you're feeding the right pet food company, try to call and talk to the owner. See if they call you back. And that's Lucy Pet Foods, we will.
Well, I shudder to think when I read on the ingredients list, sometimes sourced from foreign imports, it's like, oh, yikes. I don't even want to know what or where, but I do love the fact that you're all USA sourced and proudly made in the state of California.
Well, there are some things we have to buy overseas, like this duck from France and lamb comes from New Zealand and Australia. But yeah, the things that people are worried about, there's nothing from China. And we have a great laboratory on site where we test it, the Pet Food Safety Lab, tests everything before we test raw materials when they come in, we test products in manufacturing, and then before they're released, they're tested for 9 known contaminants. We put the results on the website. People can look up for themselves that the food is safe and has been tested. I mean, it costs a lot of money to do that, but it's the right thing to do for the animal, and that's why we do it.
Thank you, Rick. I think that's a great note to end on. I'm going to thank you so much for being here. I know our work together on behalf of MAPTA will continue. As always, I want to thank the listeners for joining us today on Sagely Speaking. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us at hello@sagelyspeaking.com. And if you could like, subscribe, or share this podcast, we'd appreciate it. Thank you to our sponsors, Lucy Pet Foods, Tamarack Resort in Idaho, Mothers Against Prescription Drug Abuse, or MAPTA, and MAPTA Action. Until we meet again, I wish you abundant faith, hope, and love. Goodbye for now.